Hello and welcome. We are back with more thoughts and opinions on, making the U.S. better, the world better, so on and so on. Uh, Today we are speaking on military spending. I know for some people, military is a touchy subject because they don't want to be confused with not supporting the troops. So let me get this out of the way right now. I support the troops. I completely back the troops. I think, you know, they should get their pay, uh, get good pay. We have great things like the Veterans Affairs and VFWs, and, you know, we should do what we can to support our troops, not just in wars, but after they've left the military. They should be supported. Now, that said, what I'm really more willing to talk about here is how bloated and insanely big our military is. We have a huge military. We're up over $700 billion, closing in on the $800 billion mark. And we can even see there are graphs that show the US's military spending next to the next nine highest countries combined. The US is still just as big, if not bigger. We need to cut the budget on military spending. I feel that a lot of these contractors, we need to have better negotiations with them or just nationalize them. Because, my goodness, we're talking about the defense, the military anyway. So, why not just incorporate them into the military, make them a part of it? But they know that often as contractors, they're going to get better paid than just being regular military. So we need to do something to at least negotiate better prices. Contractors like Lockheed Martin and Boeing and Raytheon and Northrop Grumman, we really need to trim the fat, so to speak, with these contractors. And that's one thing we can do for lowering our budget. We can also, any kind of mercenary companies in the US, same thing. If we use them, if they're hired out for whatever. I know a few years back, the most infamous was perhaps Blackwater, which they've since changed their name. I can't remember what to, but yeah, we don't need to be spending big bucks on them either. Now, with that, let's get into other ways we can kind of cut costs. Number one, there are several bases in the US we could just get rid of. We could sell the bases to the countries they're in. You know, looking, let me pull up the list here. I've got, here we go. List of US military bases. Just in joint bases domestically, there's overseas, and then they've got them Australia, Guam, Iraq, and Niger, uh, Syria. Then they have U.S. Army domestic, and they tell what states they're in, and there are a ton of them. And then we go overseas with uh, Belgium, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Bulgaria, Cameroon, Germany. We've got multiple in Israel, Italy, Iraq, Japan, Kosovo, Kuwait, Lithuania, South Korea, and then it goes Marine Corps. Same things, you know, domestic and what we have overseas. We do U.S. Navy domestic and overseas. U.S. Air Force domestic and overseas. And then we even have a U.S. Space Force. Domestic and one overseas. And then U.S. Coast Guard domestic and overseas. You know, we don't need all of these. Um, According to Wikipedia as well, let's see. The Pentagon stated in 2013 that there are around 5,000 bases total, with around 600 of them overseas. You know, we could cut a lot of fat from that budget by selling, like I said, selling a few of these bases back to the country they're in. U.S. Army bases. Let's go to overseas. Bulgaria, we have 4 in Bulgaria. Sell one of them back to Bulgaria. Germany. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34. Now, some of those are barracks. That's just what they're listed as. Some are training areas, but there's some of this we can just sell back to Germany, say here. You know, here you go. Um, Also, U.S. Army, we have 4 listed here for Kuwait. Sell them one back, and that's just the Army. Like I said, we've got others in Marines, Navy, Coast Guard, Air Force. Air Force, there are 3 in Japan. Sell them one back. There's some things we could do to kind of cut that amount. And then, there's even more domestic bases. We could strategically close them down or give them to the states to use for something else. There is still so much we could do to kind of cut this wasteful spending. Looking at a graph here, it's from microtrends.net. They show a graph that starts in 1960. We had a military budget of 47.35 billion. It slowly grows, barely lifting a little bit, barely lifting a little bit, and 1980 we see it at 143.69 billion. So over 20 years it's went up 100 billion. And then there's a huge spike in 1982, just 2 years later. We go up 80 billion to 221.67 billion. But from there, it kind of relaxes a bit again. It kind of stays fairly stable with a little up, little down, little up, little down. The year 2000, the military budget is 320.09 billion. So from 1960 to 2000, 40 years, it's jumped less than 200 billion. Almost around 180 billion, I would think, if I'm doing my math right. But 2001, we put up an extra 11 billion, but you know what happens in 2001? 9/11. So in 2002, there's a $47 billion increase. 2003, suddenly we're up to 440.53 billion. The next year, 493 billion. The next year, 533.2 billion. And it continues this huge jump. So yeah. And like I said, now we're, you know, according to this site, it has 731.75 billion in 2019. So, yeah, it's just sickening that we spend this much. And for what? What are we getting back for it? Just endless wars? We go in, do damage, take what we want. We essentially play the part of bandits, of raiders. My point, we need to do stuff to curb the cost and damage of our military. If we really just want to keep the peace, there's so much, we could do with some of these bases and just cut them out of the cost by selling them back. And that's not even counting temporary bases, like forwarding bases and stuff, when we're occupying a place. So, yeah, I just wanted to give some thoughts on that because we could save quite a bit. We could cut our budget. Let me pull this chart back up. We could cut our budget by 40% and still be bigger than the next four largest militaries in the world combined. It wouldn't hurt to cut back some of the spending and be a little more precise and on point with it. But that'll be it for now. As always, educate thyself, think, read, study, learn. Someone tries to tell you something you have trouble believing, ask them to cite their sources. I will be listing these links in the description below the video. But I'll see you all in the next video. Until then, later.